The deafening silence of the hospital room shattered when Dr. Patel slid the note across the table. Your daughter is completely deaf. Her adoptive family has withdrawn their application. Sophia Chen's heart stopped as she watched her newborn daughter sleeping peacefully in the bassinet, unaware that she had just been abandoned twice, once by her biological parents who had arranged the adoption months ago, and now by the family who had promised to love her. The baby, just hours old, had no one in the world except a hospital social worker who was already making calls to find emergency placement for the deaf child nobody wanted. Marcus Delacruz gripped his leather portfolio so tightly his knuckles turned white. At 42, the tech billionaire had everything money could buy except the one thing he desperately wanted, a family. After his wife's death during childbirth 3 years ago, leaving him childless and heartbroken, he'd buried himself in work, building his empire while his soul withered. Now, standing in the hospital hallway, he overheard the social worker's desperate calls. Something inside him broke open. "Wait," he called out, his voice cracking with emotion. "I'll take her." The social worker turned, skeptical eyes assessing the man in the $1,000 suit who wanted to adopt a deaf child on a whim. What she couldn't see was that Marcus had grown up with a deaf sister who had died young, a fact he never shared with anyone, not even his late wife. They named her Lily. The first months were a blur of sign language tutors, specialized doctors, and sleepless nights as Marcus learned to parent a deaf child while running a global tech company. His board members whispered that he'd lost his mind, that the charity case was distracting him from business. What they didn't know was that every night, when Marcus signed bedtime stories to Lily, he felt his broken heart healing. When she smiled at him, really smiled, recognizing him as her father, the fortune in his bank account seemed meaningless compared to the wealth of her love. By Lily's 5th birthday, she had become the secret weapon in Marcus's business arsenal. While other executives brought spreadsheets to meetings, Marcus occasionally brought Lily, who observed everything with extraordinary perception. Her unique way of experiencing the world led her to draw connections others missed. "Daddy, why does that man's hands shake when he talks about the numbers?" she once signed discreetly during a major acquisition meeting. The man was the CEO of a company Marcus was considering purchasing. Who, it turned out, was hiding serious financial irregularities. Lily's observation saved Marcus's company millions. As Lily grew into a precocious 10-year-old, Marcus faced an impossible choice. His company's revolutionary hearing implant technology that could potentially give Lily the ability to hear, was ready for human trials. Doctors urged him to enroll Lily as the first recipient, insisting this was her chance at a normal life. But Lily, fiercely proud of her deaf identity and the rich culture she'd embraced, refused. "I'm not broken," she signed during a heated argument. "Why can't you accept me as I am?" The fight escalated until Lily ran away, disappearing into the sprawling grounds of their estate. Hours passed with no sign of her as a violent storm rolled in. Marcus, frantic with worry, realized he might lose the most precious thing in his life because he couldn't see that his desire to fix her came from his own fears, not her needs. Lightning illuminated the garden as Marcus searched desperately, calling Lily's name even though she couldn't hear him, a habit he'd never broken. Near the koi pond, he found her small form huddled under a gazebo, soaked and shivering. When she looked up, her eyes were red from crying, but her gaze was steady. In that moment, Marcus made a decision that would change both their lives forever. Kneeling in the mud, he signed the words that would become the foundation of their future: "You're perfect exactly as you are. I'm the one who needs to change." That night, Marcus announced he was redirecting his company's research, not to cure deafness, but to create technologies that would bridge the gap between deaf and hearing worlds. By 16, Lily had become a formidable presence in the business world. Fluent in 5 sign languages and 4 spoken languages, which she read perfectly on lips, she accompanied Marcus to international meetings where her extraordinary ability to read body language and facial expressions gave them an unparalleled advantage. But trouble was brewing at home. Marcus had begun dating Caroline, a kind but ambitious executive who seemed perfect on paper. Lily, however, noticed the subtle ways Caroline undermined her relationship with her father. Scheduling important meetings during Lily's school events, forgetting to arrange interpreters for family gatherings. When Lily confronted her father, he dismissed her concerns as teenage jealousy. For the first time since he'd adopted her, a wall grew between them. The night before Marcus planned to propose to Caroline, Lily hacked into his company's secure server, a skill she'd taught herself years ago but had never used. What she discovered left her cold. Caroline was secretly negotiating to sell controlling interest in Delacruz Technologies to a competitor, a deal that would make her incredibly wealthy while destroying everything Marcus had built. Worse, the deal included shelving the assistive technologies division that helped deaf people worldwide. Lily printed the evidence, but as she turned to leave, she found Caroline standing in the doorway, face twisted with rage. "You've been a problem since day one," Caroline hissed, knowing Lily could read her lips. "After I marry your father, the first thing I'll do is send you to a boarding school for the deaf, far away." The confrontation that followed nearly destroyed the Delacruz empire. Caroline denied everything, claiming Lily had fabricated the evidence out of jealousy. Marcus, torn between the woman he thought he loved and the daughter who had never lied to him, made the devastating mistake of hesitating. That moment of doubt sent Lily running from the house, straight into the path of an oncoming car that didn't hear her footsteps on the rainy street. The accident left her in a coma, with doctors uncertain if she would ever wake up. Sitting by her hospital bed, Marcus discovered additional evidence of Caroline's betrayal on Lily's tablet. The woman was arrested, the company saved, but none of it mattered if Lily didn't recover. For weeks, Marcus never left Lily's side. He signed stories into her unresponsive hand, played her favorite music that she had always felt through vibrations, and begged her to come back to him. On the 30th day, as he dozed in the uncomfortable hospital chair, his hand still holding hers, he felt a slight pressure on his fingers. Looking up, he found Lily's eyes open, her fingers weakly forming the sign for Dad. The road to recovery would be long, but in that moment, Marcus knew they would face it together. By 21, Lily had not only recovered but had transformed Delacruz Technologies into the world leader in accessible technology. Her innovations, developed from her unique perspective as a deaf person in a hearing world, revolutionized how people with different abilities interacted with technology. When Forbes put her on their cover as the youngest billionaire to earn her fortune independently of her father's company, the headline read, "The Woman Who Listens with Her Eyes." The article detailed how the unwanted deaf baby had grown into a visionary who changed the world precisely because of, not despite, her deafness. On the evening of Lily's 30th birthday, she stood before a crowd at the gala opening of the Delacruz Institute for Inclusive Innovation. As interpreters translated her signed speech for the hearing audience, she revealed the Institute's first project, a global initiative to ensure no child was ever abandoned because of a disability. "My father taught me that differences aren't deficiencies," she signed, her movements graceful and powerful. "They're opportunities to see the world in ways others can't." In the front row, Marcus watched with tears streaming down his face, remembering the terrified man who had impulsively adopted a deaf baby 3 decades earlier, never imagining she would save him far more than he had saved her. The success of the Delacruz Institute brought unexpected complications into Lily's life. As her profile rose in both the business world and the deaf community, she found herself caught between two worlds. Deaf activists celebrated her as a role model who had achieved success without compromising her identity, while business publications portrayed her as having overcome her deafness, a narrative she repeatedly corrected in interviews. "I didn't succeed despite being deaf," she would sign forcefully. "I succeeded with a different set of tools." At 32, Lily faced her greatest professional challenge when a rival tech company launched a competing product line specifically targeting deaf consumers. The CEO, Victor Harmon, had once worked for Marcus and carried a decade-old grudge. His strategy was ruthless. he hired away several of Lily's top deaf engineers and launched a whisper campaign suggesting she had become disconnected from the deaf community because of her wealth. The accusations stung because they touched on Lily's deepest insecurity, that her privileged life had indeed separated her from the struggles of most deaf people. During this professional crisis, Lily encountered Elijah Washington at a tech conference in Singapore. A brilliant architect who had lost his hearing in his 20s, Elijah approached design from a perspective that resonated deeply with Lily. Unlike others who were intimidated by her wealth or fame, Elijah challenged her ideas and pushed her thinking in new directions. Their professional collaboration quickly developed into something more personal, though Lily kept him at arm's length, scarred by witnessing her father's disastrous relationship with Caroline years earlier. "You've built an empire helping others connect," Elijah signed to her one evening as they worked late at the institute. "But you've constructed walls around your own heart that even you can't scale." His observation hit too close to home, and Lily retreated further, throwing herself into work as the competition with Harman's company intensified. The turning point came unexpectedly. During a visit to a school for the deaf in a rural community where Delacruz Technologies was donating equipment, Lily met 7-year-old Maya, whose situation eerily mirrored her own childhood. Maya had been abandoned by her biological parents and adopted by a single father who was learning sign language to communicate with her. Watching them together, Lily was transported back to her own childhood, the frustrations, the breakthroughs, the unconditional love that had shaped her. That night, Lily called Marcus, now in his 70s but still sharp as ever. "Dad," she signed over video chat, "how did you know you could be a father to me? Weren't you terrified?" Marcus's weathered face softened. "Every single day," he admitted. "But being terrified and doing it anyway, that's what love is." Their conversation lasted until dawn, with Marcus sharing stories of her childhood that he'd never told before, the nights he'd cried with uncertainty, the moments of pure joy when they'd connected despite the barriers between their worlds. Renewed by this connection to her past, Lily developed a bold new strategy. Instead of competing directly with Harman's company, she would collaborate with them, but on her terms. She publicly invited Harman to partner on an open-source platform that would benefit all deaf consumers rather than fighting for market share. The invitation, delivered in a viral video where she signed her message without an interpreter, put Harman in an impossible position. Refusing would expose his vendetta as personal rather than business-driven. The partnership transformed both companies and led to Lily's most innovative creation yet, a neural interface that could translate thought patterns directly into visual language, allowing deaf and hearing people to communicate without either needing to learn the other's language. The technology had applications far beyond deafness, potentially revolutionizing global communication. As the prototype entered testing, Lily finally allowed herself to reconnect with Elijah, who had respected her need for space while never disappearing entirely. Their relationship blossomed against the backdrop of Lily's greatest professional triumph, but brought with it a new dilemma. Elijah received an offer to design a groundbreaking cultural center in Tokyo, a career-defining opportunity that would take him away for at least 2 years. The night before he needed to give his answer, they stood on the balcony of Lily's penthouse, the city lights spread below them like stars. "Come with me," he signed, his movements conveying both hope and resignation, knowing what he was asking her to leave behind. Lily looked out at the empire she had built, thinking of her father who had sacrificed so much to give her a home, of the institute that was changing lives daily, of the new technology that required her guidance to reach its potential. For the first time in her life, her path forward wasn't clear. The answer came from an unexpected source. Marcus, now semi-retired but still on the board, called an emergency meeting. "I've been watching you struggle with this decision," he told Lily. 30 years ago, I made the best choice of my life when I brought you home. Now it's time for you to make yours." He unveiled a restructuring plan that would allow Lily to oversee the neural interface project remotely while establishing a Tokyo branch of the institute that she could develop alongside Elijah's work. "You taught me that limitations only exist if we accept them," Marcus signed. Don't limit your heart because you think you have to choose between love and purpose. Rewrite the rules, just like you've always done. On her 35th birthday, Lily stood with Elijah at the opening of the Tokyo Delacruz Institute, which was integrated into the cultural center he had designed. The building itself was a marvel of accessible architecture, where deaf and hearing visitors experienced the space with equal wonder through different senses. Marcus, now using a cane but still standing tall, watched with pride as his daughter addressed the crowd in Japanese Sign Language. Later that evening, in a quiet moment away from the celebration, Lily presented Marcus with a small box. Inside was a prototype of the neural interface, smaller and more advanced than any version made public. "This is the first one that works perfectly," she signed. "I want you to have it." When Marcus put on the device, something miraculous happened. For the first time, he could hear Lily's thoughts directly, not as sound but as a form of understanding that transcended language. And she could receive his thoughts in return, the love, pride, and gratitude that had sometimes been lost in translation between them over the years. "I never needed to hear your voice to know who you are," Marcus said, both speaking and thinking the words simultaneously. "But I'm grateful to experience how your mind works, just once." Lily smiled through tears. "You've always heard me in the ways that matter most," she replied in the same dual fashion. "You heard me when the world was silent." As they embraced, Lily realized that her life had come full circle. The unwanted deaf baby had become not just a billionaire, but a bridge between worlds, just as her father had been a bridge for her. Their story wasn't about overcoming deafness or achieving wealth. It was about the revolutionary power of unconditional love to transform limitations into possibilities. If this continuation of Lily and Marcus's journey has moved you, remember that the most powerful technology we possess isn't found in devices but in our capacity to connect across differences. Their story reminds us that what others might see as obstacles can become our greatest strengths when embraced with courage and love. Share this message if it resonated with you, and join our community of storytellers and dreamers who believe in the power of understanding to change the world.